Hey everybody, how are you? The Mets are imploding, imploding. You see how discombobulated I am? Manic Monday, thinking what could be worse than being a Met fan right now? Expectations going into the season. I admit I had them, just like in 2015. I had them. I thought they were better than they were. So did most Met fans. We were sold a bill of goods, and then the worst thing happened. An owner bought our team that promised us the world, promised us the World Series within 5 years, pretty much. Fans put in their heads that this team was better than they were. And we all drank the Kool-Aid. We believed they were a contender. And the team was never on the level of what the fans thought they were. Stearns made changes for the sake of making changes. Didn't like the core, he'll bring in all new players. Doesn't matter that they don't play the position that you're going to put them at, and means nothing. They signed Williams and Weaver. The Yankees are in desperate need of bullpen help and didn't offer these two guys contracts. Does that tell you anything? The $370 million farce, which is the New York Mets. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, how are you? We're 7-15. We're not even at the end of April. We're not even a week before the end of April. We're 8 games out of first place. We're 6 behind in the wild card with 11 teams in front of us. You know how many teams? Tomorrow's a big game. Because with an 11-game losing streak, you may have a chance. Right now, it seems that the Mets have about a 3% chance of making the playoffs. Do you know how many teams in Major League Baseball history, after having a 12-game losing streak, have made the playoffs? 0. So tomorrow's a big game after all. Since June 12th of last year, when Kodai Senga went down because of an errant throw by Pete Alonso, which no doubt in my mind Stearns heard the crowd gasp, saw the rest of the team fall flat, and blamed it totally on Alonso. I totally believe in my heart that Stearns blamed Alonso for not making the playoffs last year. We have one of the worst records in baseball since last year. 10 months. Over 100 games. We're over 20 games under 500 after having the best record in baseball up until June 11th. We bring in the great Bo Bichette. Okay, Bo Bichette, was he a good pivot? Hey, Lee, was he a good pivot from not getting Tucker? I guess. He's a professional hitter. He's a .290 lifetime batting average. He's been terrible. Been absolutely terrible. He made Jason Bay, if you're an old Met fan like I am, look like Barry Bonds. The only surprise with Bichette is after making a couple of errors his first 5 games, hasn't made an error and looks a lot better at third base. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. He has a 0 defensive WAR. He's been okay at third base and only reason to believe that he'll get better as the season goes on. Yes, HFAB, your Cubbies did sweep. Absolutely. Cubbies are a good team. How do you like Pete Crow Armstrong? We gift wrapped at him and sent him to the Windy City. He's a great ball player. He's always going to be a guy that strikes out a lot, PCA, but he's also a guy that's going to hit 30 homers and play Gold Glove defense and steal 40 bases. Great pickup by your staff. And congratulations. I love Chicago. I went to Wrigley Field in the 80s. Great, great place. Great to be a Cub fan. It's a great, great town. So Bichette has been terrible. Robert Jr., he's been okay, and I give a lot of the grades of being okay because he's not on the IL already. About a 730 OPS. On base percentage, actually. Marcus Semien looks totally washed up. He tries, still can play the field, but his bat speed, there's nothing there. Jorge Polanco. Polanco can't walk. Instead of picking up a bat, he should pick up a crutch. Oh, no, and then pick up a bat. He can't walk. He's on the disabled list. IL. Sorry, I'm old. I don't believe in the IL. It's called a disabled list because you are disabled. You can't play. I'm not ridiculing anybody. Williams and Weaver. Williams and Weaver sounds like a law firm that does nothing for you. The Yankees are in desperate need of pitching, and they wouldn't offer either one of these guys a contract. Now, I believe that they were wrong with that. I thought they could be serviceable relievers, and they have been, I guess, serviceable. But you cross your fingers when they come in. Yesterday, if we have Diaz, we win that game, and we end the losing streak. Run prevention. David Stern's run prevention, most important thing. Well, he was right. We don't score any runs. He was totally right with that. We don't score any runs. We have a first baseman that the only thing he knows about first base is that it's a position. He's never played it. And now he doesn't do anything. He's on the IL. I said it, IL. Polanco. I could have told you Polanco wasn't going to be the first baseman. Polanco's a DH. Hey, Roy. I hope you're doing well, Roy. Good to see you. Listen, I'm going to get into that, Roy, because that's a great point. Thank you for reminding me. Lindor, mental errors are worse than his physical errors. I think he's made one error this season in the field and 10 up here. Tommy Pham and Jared Young, $370 million team, and these guys are in your starting lineup. You have a 226 team batting average, 624 OPS, 286 OBP, 326 slugging. Key metrics, every single key metrics. The bad news bears would split a 4-game series with this team. 11 errors, 986 fielding percentage, but that is not the whole story because they don't cover any ground. You know, if you throw the ball to a 4-year-old, they can catch it. Try hitting a ground ball 95 miles an hour to them. Contact is important. They hit the ball on the ground continually. They were at Wrigley Field, HF. Wrigley Field, the ball, if you popped out to shortstop, the ball ended up 3 rows into the left field bleachers. And they're hitting ground ball after ground ball after ground ball after ground ball. Roy, I had stated yesterday, and good to see you, man. Today was the day. If you want to put this in a girlfriend-boyfriend term, today is the day. Oh, thank you, Roy. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I have them with me. feel like I'm strangling myself here. Did I take it off? No, here it is. I have my boy's ashes in there. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it. You have a girlfriend, all your friends, your family. Oh, don't break up with her during the holidays. It looks terrible. It looks like you don't want to be with her. You don't want to buy her a gift, this and that. And then guess what happens? You find out she cheated on you December 1st. Yes! I could break up with her now, and not one person could say I'm wrong. Now, one person could say, wow, you're a bastard breaking up before the holidays. Nope. Today's that day. You could fire him today, and no one could say a word. The only thing they could probably say is, why didn't you fire Stearns also? That's the only thing. Because you have to remember, even as a POBO, president of baseball operations, Stearns has to go to Cohen for permission to fire Mendoza. Okay, many people think it's his decision. No, you have to go to the owner and get permission. Hey, Joe. Yeah, Joe, this is scary, but he has to get permission. And it seems like Cohen, other than a couple of moves, has gone along with what Stearns has said. Stearns did not say, come on, Steve, we have to sign Soto. No, that didn't happen. Pete Alonso, the only reason Alonso was signed 2 years ago to the one-year contract was at Fan Appreciation Day at Citi Field. Cohen and Stearns got booed unmercifully, and they were screaming, bring back Pete. The next day, he signed. That was Cohen saying, this is a disaster. The Mets will turn it around. There's no doubt in my mind the Mets aren't going to lose 95 games this year. But will they turn it around enough to make the playoffs? I don't know. I thought Bo Bichette would make a difference too, Dave. How are you, Dave? I thought so too. He's a professional hitter, and there's no doubt in my mind that Bo Bichette will be hitting 275 by the end of the season. Yeah, Alonso is off to a terrible start. The Mets are 0-13 when scoring 3 runs or less. Yes, Joe, three runs, you hit the lotto with the Mets. I'd sign on for 3 runs tomorrow with Nolan McLean pitching. If you score 3 tomorrow, you probably win that game. But I will tell you this much. This is the buffer Mendoza. Once Mendoza gets fired, there's nothing left. You got to fire Stearns. Now, Stearns, I think just this core was not his kind of core. Stearns likes athletic players. Bichette is slow. Polanco can't walk. And Simeon is older. So I guess as I say that, I realize how ridiculous it sounds. BJ, you can't do that anymore. It's not politically correct. Someone that loves TV will file a suit against you. It's ridiculous. You can't do anything anymore. But I will tell you this much. This was the day that your girlfriend cheated on you when you've wanted to get rid of her and no one could say a word if you broke up with her. Now, there are a couple of reasons. One being, I don't think Mendoza's a good manager. I don't think he's a terrible manager because part of managerial process is getting along with your players. You have everyone in that clubhouse is a multimillionaire. Think about it. The minor league, the major league minimum wage is, what is it, $950 a year or something, $950,000? So technically, these guys are millionaires. It's very hard for Mendoza to go over to a guy like Soto when Soto is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But all I heard today was, but Lindor, who basically continued his mental errors when he said, well, it's almost the fans are going to come in rough and it's like an us against them mentality. Oh, that's what you say. That's your answer. It's you against the fans. No, if you can get your head out of your ass, it wouldn't be you against the fans. It would be the fans and you against the rest of the National League. Ridiculous. There's definitely something going on with Lindor, and I'll tell you what I think it is. I think it's the same thing what happened with, if you're a hockey fan, the Rangers of Zibanejad. Zibanejad was so butthurt when his friends got traded, when Trouba was traded unceremoniously, sent packing by Drury. Zibanejad couldn't function. And I think this is what you have with Lindor. I think you had the political unrest in the clubhouse. I think Lindor thought he'd get away with that. Stories came out. Then you have his wife working with Mamdani, so you know which side of the fence they are in Manhattan. It just so happened that two of the Mets that were ushered out are staunch Republicans. That doesn't look good for you. I'm not saying that's definitely what happened. I do know what definitely happened because I have someone who works with the Mets, is that Lindor's wife had an argument with Nemo's wife in the family room about politics. That I know for a fact. And I also know for a fact that everyone loved Nemo's wife. So it is not a stretch to think that maybe those wives aren't so into Francisco Lindor's wife right now. And maybe that's bothering Francisco. Also, Francisco wanted to be captain. And I think this is a Trouba situation. I think he's butthurt. I think Francisco Lindor needs to be liked. I think Lindor is very insecure. And I think that he sees he's not loved right now. And that could be bothering him. Absolutely. BJ. Well, it's not the dugout. They have a family room where the kids go and everything. And I know for a fact that happened because I have someone that works for the Mets inside, near the locker room. And I'm not saying Lindor's wife's not a nice woman. She's probably a very nice woman. She's just this America. She's a modern, progressive thinking woman. And I also think it's interesting that this team has become more Latin. I think that there is definitely a narrative. I think there is. I know that Carlos Delgado, when Omar Minaya went to court, Carlos Delgado, when Delgado was a free agent. This I know for a fact because I knew the agent, or one of the agents from Aces, Sam and Seth Levinson. I grew up with them. Delgado got very turned off. They met in a hotel room, a suite in Miami. And all Omar started talking about is the Los Mets. Pedro and this guy, and that we're going to turn it into the Los Mets. And Delgado got a little turned off by that. And Delgado's Hispanic. Got turned off by it. He felt he should be concentrating on getting the best players here, not making it all Latin. And I'm not so sure that didn't happen now. I think that it's a mess. And listen, I could throw all this crap at the wall and nothing has to stick. I might be totally wrong. I do know that happened in the Met Clubhouse. Yes, it was Latino culture. And and the Latino guys were great. Absolutely, Mitch. How are you? Yeah, the wife is working for Mamdani. So what do you think? Let's guess. You think she's a lib? And there's nothing wrong with being a liberal. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with being a liberal. But if you're a very outspoken one who is maybe making people that are on the other side of the fence in the locker room very uncomfortable, and it just so happens the ones that were uncomfortable got ushered out, I have to think you have something to do with it. Now, some would ask, if the Mets are a very far left-leaning team, All I could tell you is when I was watching during Veterans Day, I saw the pride flag up and transgenders dancing on the screen. I'm guessing they are. Again, nothing wrong with being transgender, nothing wrong with being gay, and nothing wrong with being very pro alternative lifestyle and alternative whatever. You want to call yourself a bread box, call yourself a bread box. But don't get mad at me because I don't accept it. But I could be nice about it. I don't have to make you feel foolish. But I will tell you this much. There is no doubt in my mind, that I've been around 64 years. I've been around Major League ball players. I know ball players. I know agents. This is ramifications of the political unrest in that clubhouse from last year. And you know how I know? Because Lindor was involved in it, and he's still here. And his wife works for the mayor's office. That's how I know. When you're pushing a socialist agenda, probably in the clubhouse. And a lot of them are listening to you because they're Hispanic and tend to be more Democrat. And when the couple of people that weren't happened to get ushered out of the team, and Stearns as well, which I'm guessing Stearns is not a Republican, this is what you get. You get 7 and 15. You get players not happy. You get ownership scratching their head. That's what you get. Now, do I think that usually within 2 months, 60 games is usually when a team shows you who they are? Usually 60 games. Rightly, usually 60 games. 60 games, you're in May, late May, early June. You're usually, if you've gotten off to a real slow start, you have straightened it out by then. The team usually has worked out, found out where they're weak, found out where you're strong. Kind of, you play another month, 6 weeks, and then you realize what you need to do to bolster your team at the trade deadline. There's no doubt in my mind that Dante Bichette, that's how old I am. Bo Bichette will be hitting 270. The RBIs are leaving out. No doubt in my mind. He's not going to strike out 200. He's on the pace to strike out about 190 times this year. He's not that player. I think he's hurt. I think he's still hurt. You could see him moving his knee. He had an injury last year. I don't have any faith in Simeon's bat coming alive again. I don't. I think Simeon's a 230 hitter now. That's what I think he is. I think no, there wasn't a fist fight, BJ. From what I was told, there wasn't a fist fight, but there was a screaming match. That's what I was told. And the guy was there. And the guy also said that Francisco Lindor's wife is very nice. She's just radical left. But most of New York is. Go into the city. And I'm not saying that's wrong. There's nothing wrong with being progressive. There's nothing wrong with wanting the world to change. Nothing wrong with that. There's something wrong with bringing it in the clubhouse. And if your wife is bringing it in the clubhouse, it's time for you to tell her, go do your job because this is where I work. This is my job. This is why you were a TikTok girl before I married you. She wanted to be famous. She was on TikTok. You wouldn't have had the house we live in now if it weren't for me. So you know what? I love you. I respect you. Go over there and talk. Because I probably didn't get the captaincy because of this. What's next? They'll usher me out of here. Because Steve Cohen is still a businessman. I don't care how much him and Alex love Francisco Lindor and his wife. He's still a businessman. And if he thinks everybody's miserable because of Lindor, guess who's going? It's going to be Lindor, especially when you have Soto signed for $800 million for the next 14 years. This is Soto's team, not Lindor's team. Lindor may still think it's his team, but when he found out it wasn't, this is what you got. He's butthurt. This is Soto's team. If Soto said, I want to be captain tomorrow or I'm opting out, if Cohen loves him, they'll make him captain. Now, this is what I think he has to do. Yeah, Joe, I think this is what they have to do. I think that Soto, even though it is not his personality, he does not like to get front and center, it's still his team. Soto has to call the meeting the night that he's in the lineup, that he's back, and say, guys, let's all do this together. We're better than this. Half the team will probably say, holy shit, Juan spoke. Because he probably hasn't said anything like that. Now, if they go on a winning streak and they listen to Soto, then you probably lost Lindor for the year because they'll think, oh, they all hate me. But you know what? I think Lindor's act has worn thin. Now, I will tell you something that I know for a fact that one of the players, I won't tell you who, had a big problem with Lindor with. Last year when the Mets were fighting for a playoff spot, the bases were loaded against them with 2 outs. Someone doubled, cleared the bases. The Mets were now losing, and Lindor was joking around with the guy at second base that just might have ended the season for them. One of the players in the clubhouse shook his head, kicked the bat rack after looking at that. That's a true story. There's something wrong with that. You shouldn't be that happy. I can't imagine Soto doing that. I can't imagine McNeil doing that. I can imagine Francisco Lindor doing that. Look at me, I have to be loved by everybody. Well, guess what? When 1,000 people are your best friends, you have no best friends. Francisco, Met fans who are as loyal as they come are turning on you. Maybe it's not working what you're doing. Act like a captain. Don't joke around when your team just blew the lead. Even if you have to act mad and you're generally smiley, don't smile when the base is loaded and you just struck out in the 8th inning. Stop yourself from smiling. You're an adult. Don't appear like you don't give a shit. That's the problem. Joe, that has happened to many players. They come here, the bright lights here, very different to play in. Very different, obviously. They're a great player. Look, Jason Bay came here 30 years ago. He wasn't a great player, Jason Bay. He was a supporting player. Bobby Bonilla. He was a great player because he had Barry Bonds next to him in the lineup. He was a supporting player. It's like a Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta is great if you have an ace. He's a great number 2. Freddie Peralta pitches 5 innings, 5 1/3, and is gone. That's not an ace. You know what an ace is? Game 4 of the World Series, you go 8 innings because you're up against the wall. You push yourself. That's an ace. First of all, you're not an ace if you don't go 200 innings. I don't care who you are. You're not an ace. You got to give me 7 innings to start, or you're not an ace. You're a glorified opener. Because if you're going to go 5 innings, I might as well just use 2 bullpen guys to go 5 innings. And probably get the same result. Because they're coming in throwing 99 because they know they're only throwing 30 or 40 pitches. BJ, yeah, I agree with you. Francisco Lindor. Well, first of all, I think Francisco Lindor's lost right now. I think there are definitely things going on other than baseball. I can't say definitely, but I will say it certainly appears when it's the first inning and you forget how many outs there are, and you get the force on a ground ball and don't throw the first for a double play, chances are you're thinking about something else in that top of the first. Yeah. Well, Ellsbury was hurt. Yeah, a player of prominence, Mitch, comes here, and it's a lot different. Well, first of all, the pressure's on you here. You have 19 different sports outlets here to talk about. In Toronto, you probably have one. You know, you're all day, they're talking about you. Yes, Lee, Francisco Lindor's mind is definitely elsewhere. And then what happens is your mind is elsewhere, and then you're also having a shitty season. So now your mind is elsewhere and on not doing your job. So now you are totally screwed up. Francisco Lindor has 1 home run and 1 RBI in 22 games. Think about that. He's on pace for 7 RBIs. And he can't steal a base anymore either. All of a sudden, the Mets can't steal a base. They get thrown out every time they run. Last year, they set an all-time record, MLB record. And the pitching coach, Jeremy Hefner, got fired. How's he doing in Atlanta? The team ERA is under 3. Bryce Elder, who had the highest earned run average of any starter in the major leagues last year, has a 2.2 ERA. Jeremy Hefner wasn't the problem. The problem is Luis Severino is not supposed to have a 2.2 ERA. Eventually, it catches up with you. Hefner did it with smoke and mirrors because that's what he had. You had pitchers that were number 5, number 6, number 7 starters on any team. Atlanta's pitching was supposed to stink this year. It was supposed to be Chris Sale and everybody else. It's mind-boggling. Now, do I think the Mets will straighten out? No. Today, it's 4:38. I haven't gotten a text yet to say that Mendoza's been fired, which means he's not getting fired because they would have had a press conference in the afternoon. This was your girlfriend cheating on you. If you ever wanted to break up with her, this was the day. Because now you look like an idiot if Mendoza loses another 3 in a row and you fire him Thursday. What? An 11-game losing streak wasn't enough? You had to wait for 14 before you fired him? It looks ridiculous. This was the day you fire him. On the off day, you get the new coaches in, you have a team meeting tonight or tomorrow, and let's start fresh with the homestand. Get some juice in the stands. You're going to have no one there. 40 degrees tomorrow night. You're going to have 8 people there tomorrow night. Maybe you would have had 40 if you had Beltran announced. But the most hated man in New York sports is David Stearns, because this is the boy genius who is smarter than everyone in the room, too smart for his own good. Because let me tell you something I learned a long time ago when I started out in stock brokerage. It's not important to know what you know. It's important to know what you don't know, because what you don't know can get you killed, not what you know. You can prepare for what you know. Now, here is a possibility. David Stearns didn't want to sign everyone to long-term contracts. David Stearns, the first year, make no mistake, wanted to rebuild this team. What happened was he didn't go, hey, Liz, he didn't go for the big free agents. Minaya, he gave $25 million to. We needed a starter. He went with Severino. He went with some guys that were lower tier bargain basement guys. He got lucky. Every move he made worked out. From Julio Iglesias off the scrap heap, hitting 340 and coming out with a hit record besides. Everything he did worked. They get to within a game of the World Series or 2 games. How do you rebuild that team? Last year, he couldn't rip that team down. People would have said you just took the Dodgers almost to the brink. How do you rebuild? We almost won the World Series. So he got stuck there. So we had to say, okay. And then last year, they were what he thought they'd be. So now he had a chance to remake it in his own image. What's his own image? His own image is signing a lot of guys to 1 and 2 year contracts, guys that are on the other side of 30, before 30, and that can play multiple positions. He likes that. He likes getting pitchers that underperform, putting them in your pitching lab and overperform. That's what he likes. He gets off on it probably. But for every one diamond you find in the rough, you're going to find a lot of pieces of coal. The odds are that after you find that one diamond, the 30 more are going to be coal. And that's what happened. That's what happened. Now, how smart does David Stearns look if the Mets are 20 out in July and flip Freddie Peralta for a number 1 guy in someone's organization that turns out to be a great player? Trades Bichette, who happened to get hot during the year, to a wild card team or a team with aspirations to win it all, maybe one hitter away, and you get 2 great young pieces. You find someone to take Polanco, maybe Devin Williams if he's having a good year. You turn that into 6 young players. The strike season of next year, which definitely going to have a strike, where those players will be playing in the minor leagues. And you come back loaded for bear in 28 with the checkbook as well, with Steve Cohen's money to build around the team. Jonah Tong is ready. McLean is ready. Scott's ready. A couple of other minor league pitchers are ready. Carson Benj is ready. Ewing, the rookie outfielder, is ready. Clifford, the first baseman's ready. And you fill the team up. They got a lot younger, a lot faster, a lot more athletic, and a lot better because David Stearns took a shot on 1 year contracts this year. Will we still hate Stearns? Will you hate Stearns if he turns Peralta into the number 1 guy in a team's organization that turns out to be Pete Crow Armstrong? And if you want to think about it, right now, Peralta for Armstrong. You don't even know if you could re-sign Peralta. You get Pete Crow Armstrong. Would that be a good trade? You get another great young player for Simeon. Well, for Devin Williams, they're always looking for relief pitchers. If Devin Williams happens to have a decent year, what will they give you for him? Will this year be worth it? Because you're forgetting two words that they always preach: sustainable winner. Stearns isn't worried about this year. He's worried about the next 5. And if he took a shot this year, hoping that the mercenaries would all play well together in the sandbox, and they didn't, but you end up conquering after losing this season, will you take it? Will you take this year right now, a 95-loss team, for the Mets being in the wild card the next 5 years after this? Right now, if I offered you, Mets going to lose 100 games, but we're going to make moves that in the next 2 years, for 5 straight years, the Mets have an actual shot of winning the World Series with a younger team and a team built for success. Would you trade that? Well, that's exactly what I think David Stearns thinks. I'm thinking like David Stearns now. You curse out your mother and father for not letting you go out on a Friday night. They want you to study for your exam Monday. And they do that for a few years. And you hate them. You know when you don't hate them? When they're gone and you own a boat and a yacht because you're a doctor making $1 million a year. You'll remember those days when you couldn't go out. When all the people that are partying are struggling to pay their rent now and you own the houses they live in. That's how David Stearns thinks. Stearns thinks in the long term. I wish I could convince myself right now that that's what he's planning. But I will tell you a secret. That's what he's planning. Take it from me. I think, aside from being embarrassed and losing his job, Stearns almost hopes this team fails. Because at the trade deadline, you saw what the prices were last year. Do you know what you can get for a guy like Freddie Peralta? Freddie Peralta's having a Freddie Peralta season in July, where you can get him for 10, 12 starts when you're fighting for a playoff spot. Do you know what an organization will give you for Freddie Peralta? Do you know what an organization that's one bat shy will give you for a guy like Bichette? A lot. And what does Stearns like? Young, controllable players. And deep down, I try to make myself feel better, but I do believe deep down, Stearns has sat with Cohen and said, Steve, like an ACL injury when you're cursing the physical therapist for 5 more, this is going to be painful. But you want a sustainable, successful team. The Dodgers were terrible 10 years ago. They went through this, the Dodgers. Go look at the record. Steve, you know stock brokerage. I know baseball. You hired me to do a job here. Steve, you invest in people, not for now, for when they're 65 and they can retire. I'm investing in this team for the long term, not just to win this year. Let me do my job. And Cohen obviously has said yes because Stearns is still here. The difference is the bill of goods. I think Stearns is selling Cohen. I think Stearns believes it. I think Stearns believes you do not have to sign players because Soto Cohen signed Cohen. Cohen signed Soto. Stearns didn't sign Soto. He wanted an identity. He wanted a draw. You're getting 5,000 more walk-up sales, 5,000 more a game because of Soto. 5,000 people aren't standing out to get tickets to see Francisco Lindor play. And down the line, you're going to have Soto going for his 500th home run, his 3,000th hit. You know the deal. I think Stearns is willing to sacrifice now for the future. Now, if you happen to get lucky now, he's not going to throw it away. I know, Mitch. And I think that's what Stearns tells Cohen. I think he says, look, we're going to take a terrible hit for this. But, the fan that's screaming on FAN isn't paying your nut, Steve. It's very easy for them to say, do this, this, and that. They have the only thing they do is come watch the game. You're the one paying for all this. Steve Cohen loses money every year. Steve Cohen has never made $1 with the Mets. It's a losing proposition for him. And I think Stearns feels, I will get this to where we will be right there for 6 or 7 years. You want to be the East Coast Dodgers. Let me help you get there. Yeah, but they were terrible. And they used the money to lure some guys like Betts and all those guys there. And I think Stearns looks at it this way. You got to remember, Stearns isn't 75 years old. The Western Winter World Series. Stearns is under 40. What is he, 40, 41, whatever he is? Stearns plans to be here a while. Hey, Arrow, how are you? I'm glad you found this stream randomly. I hope you watch some of my other shows. I have some good interviews. If you like The Sopranos, Rob Finaro's a friend of mine. I did an interview with him. I do music, albums, Beatles, all that stuff. So I thank you so much. And everyone, welcome Arrow in. Thank you, Arrow. But look, I think that this year probably, I think that there will be 1 or 2 moments during the summer where you'll wake up before having to put the barbecue on and you'll say, wow, can we actually pull this off? I think you'll have some of those moments. I think you'll definitely have a moment where even the worst teams in baseball win 5 in a row. Find teams that lose 100 games. They won 4 or 5 in a row during the year at one time. There will be a time when the Mets will win 12 out of 16, 12 out of 17. They'll inch a game or 2 over 500, and you'll say, are we one of the very few that had an 11-game losing streak and could actually show everybody we can win? Only to lose 5 out of the next 6 because of the holes in this team and say, I was such a schmuck that day when I thought that. But let me ask you a question. As upset as you'll be if the Mets are 20 games under at the trade deadline, and you find that the Mets just got the number 1 guy in the Oakland A's farm for Freddie Peralta and a really good young player. They traded Bichette, and they got 2 guys that are a year away. Top-rated minor league guys. They got a young, controllable arm for Devin Williams and someone else. You don't really believe that that day you'll say, well, we're going to be good eventually. That's what makes you come back every year. I was disgusted with the Rangers season this year. You know what's happening in May? The Rangers have a chance for the number 1 overall pick. And no worse than number 4 in a loaded draft. And a couple of veterans that they'll probably trade. And all of a sudden, the Rangers are a lot younger, a lot more exciting, and at least a shot to win when you knew this team couldn't do anything. That's what David Stearns is trying to do here. David Stearns is not retiring this year. David Stearns thinks he's going to be here another 10 years. And he wants to be successful every year. You can't go by 2 years ago. Mendoza had a great year his first year, a miserable year last year, and this is the year that we figured we'd grade him on. Because we knew he wasn't as good as year 1. Everything fell into place. And we knew he wasn't probably as bad as last year when they collapsed. He's somewhere in between. He's not the worst manager in the world. I don't think he's Terry Francona, but I don't think he's terrible. But now you have 100-plus game sample size where you're 20 games under, where you have an offense that just can't hit their way out of a paper bag. Guys that have been in the MVP balloting that are not 40 years of age. Lindor finished second in the MVP balloting 2 years ago. Soto's in the top 5 every year. Marcus Semien. Right? You're not talking about the White Sox here with unproven players. And you have guys on this team now that are not 30 years of age that have been superstars. What did they all drink the old age juice before the season and all become old? No. You think Bichette's going to hit 220? Anybody that wants to bet me that Bichette is going to hit 220, I'll take your bets. Bichette will go through a 40-game stretch. He'll hit 330. That's the kind of player he is. He's a 290 lifetime hitter. He hasn't been in the league a year. He's 28. What do you think? He just forgot how to hit? It's systemic right now. Bichette's going to be a 280 hitter. Lindor, do you think Lindor's going to finish with 5 homers and 18 RBIs this year? He's not going to be 30-90 like he usually is, but I would guess that Lindor will be 20 and 65, 20 and 70 because of the terrible start. Probably hit 250. And if you look at his batting average, this isn't the slowest start he's ever been off to. Extra base hits-wise, it is. This isn't his worst start. Productive-wise, it is, not batting. You think Freddie Peralta is not going to turn things around a bit in a contract year where he's a free agent after this year? He's still got a 4 ERA. He should be 3-1. McLean's been brilliant. You think McLean's just going to fall off a cliff and not be good? But with all that being said, I have to ask you this question. If I offer you to make the wild card this year and really not have much of a chance of winning the World Series, or this year becoming an unmitigated, continued disaster, we sell off some pieces at the trade deadline, and we're good for 5 years. Which one do you want? I agree, Sal. And the problem with that is if you fire Mendoza, Stearns is next. Stearns still has someone to fire. If you take Mendoza out of the picture and they stink, it's on Stearns. Because as bad as this team is put together, you could still say, oh, maybe it's Mendoza. Because, Stearns walks in to Cohen's office and says, look what Bichette did last year in the playoffs. Bichette's a 290 lifetime hitter. He's one of the best hitters in baseball, and he's one of the most clutch hitters in baseball. I'm keeping Robert on the field, in center field. You have the best player of a generation in Soto, or at least one of the top three. You have probably the rookie of the year in McLean. You have Freddie Peralta, who's a top 15 pitcher in Major League Baseball. You have Francisco Lindor. It's not me. That's what Stearns, if he has to save his job, is going to say. He's going to say, you have two possible Hall of Fame players in this lineup right now with Soto and Lindor, and they're not 39. Francisco Alvarez, right now, his WAR plus, that's wins above replacement, is at 150. He's 50% better than every other catcher in baseball. Over the last 90 games, his WAR's about 130. You'd never believe that, right? The only two players that are above right now in WAR, wins above replacement, are Francisco Alvarez at about 149 or 150, and I believe Luis Roberts about 112. Everyone else is 95 and less. Wins above replacement. So if I go out and play left field, I'm going to do better than the guy playing left field right now. Pretty scary. It's pretty scary. And the scarier part is the starting pitching hasn't been bad. Peralta's given you not quite what you thought he'd give you, but 4 ERA. He hasn't really been blown up. And if Brazaban gets that out in Chicago and the 2 runs don't score that he put on base, his ERA's 3. McLean's ERA's 2.5. Holmes is like 1.8. These are your 3 top starters. And you got a good first 2 games out of Senga. And Peterson is Peterson. The starting pitching hasn't killed you here. The Mets don't score any runs. If you look at the Mets starting pitching and you take Senga's last couple of starts out of there, it's probably at the very least middle of the pack and probably better. The Mets starters ERA without Senga and Peterson, who got blown up the last couple of times, is probably decent. The problem is Stearns doesn't like to pay for relievers, and he feels that relievers on year, off year, on year, off year, and he tries to outsmart the market by grabbing a guy that underperformed and hoping he'll overperform. That's what he does. You have about 6 relievers in baseball that every year have a great year. It is so volatile. Look at the back of baseball cards. Edwin Diaz had one of the worst records as a reliever in the franchise history of the Mets his first year. Brutal. And came back and looked like an MVP. Now, I don't think the Yankees are built well offensively. The team goes with Judge and That's it. If Judge doesn't hit, this team doesn't score. It did, Lee. Tobias Myers was a good piece picking up in that Peralta trade. I think he's under control for 4 or 5 years. He's 27 years of age. He beat the Mets. Well, he pitched against the Mets when the Brewers faced the Mets. He shut the Mets out for 5 innings in one of those starts. Myers has good stuff. Myers could definitely be a number 5 starter. And you might see him moved into the starting rotation now. But you know what? All I can tell you is this, Met fans, and I'm talking to myself here. Either way, if your family's healthy, if you're healthy, if you have a roof over your head, you have a car, you can afford your groceries, this is baseball. That's all it is. I know you get upset. I know you want to throw your remote control. I won't even throw the remote control anymore because they're like $20 to replace now. Verizon used to send you a free remote control. Now you got to pay for them. Screw that. I'll throw it against the pillow. I accidentally dropped this remote. I have the other one there. It smashed like I had a sledgehammer in my hand because it hit the wood floor. Had to order another one, $20. I'll show you the old one because you guys know I don't bullshit you. Here's the old one. I put it back together, but it came apart. It didn't have the middle. You see that went. I tried to put it back together and it wasn't working. So I had to order a new one. But ultimately, we get all angry. Fire Mendoza, I hate Stearns. It's baseball. When you turn this off, when you turn the Met game off, when you Evan or Wardy, whoever you're listening to, you go about the Met losing streak. Your son or daughter still is as healthy as they were 5 minutes ago. They're still hungry. Your lights are still on. It's baseball. It's a sport. And we have to keep that in the back of our minds. Now, am I trying to do everything to convince myself to be happy? Yeah, and I'm trying to help you too. But you know what I mean. It's just baseball. There are other things in life. But we personalize this so very much. Our happiness. How many of you, when the Mets blow a ball game, your whole night's ruined? Think about it. How precious life is. And your whole night is ruined and you can't have a good time because of it. Think about that. Just think about that. You have so many days on this earth, and because the Mets couldn't get an out, you're going to blow one of the days on earth. Think about it. If you think of things like that, you could take a deep breath and say, okay, everything's going to be okay. Because my life will be okay also. Hey, Sal, you know something? I had asked someone about that a while back, not recently. There's a lot in Wally's background, I think, when they did the background check. There was a little alcoholism. He got arrested for raising his hands to his wife. That was, I believe, rescinded. There's a lot they don't like. You have to remember the Wilpons were very, very conservative. You wouldn't believe it, but they were very conservative. And he didn't fit into that structure of what they wanted. I totally agree with you. I think he's 67. So the problem is, if you want sustainable success and you want to go 8 years, what's he going to be, 75 years old? See, that's the problem. You're looking at it because you want your manager around minimum 5 years. And I think that's the problem. I think that baseball has become a young man's game now. And I think, look, you have a manager that's, I think, 33 years of age now in Major League Baseball. It's become the analytics department. They're all 30-year-old guys with graduate degrees. They're not the old crusty cigar smoking 65-year-olds anymore. The older guys don't deal well with the computers and metrics. They don't believe in it. They don't believe in it. They want the eye test. I'll give you a perfect example. Perfect example. If you look at Derek Jeter's stats on a baseball card and never saw him play, you don't think he's one of the best players of all time. Derek Jeter in his day wasn't even the best shortstop in the Major League Baseball in any team he ever played for. There were always two shortstops better than him. Garcia Parra was better than him. Tulowitzki was better than him. Hanley Ramirez was better than him. Garcia Parra, he was never even the best shortstop in the league when he was playing. You hear about him, you think it's the second coming of Jesus. If you're a Yankee fan and you saw him play every day. I think the game has passed a lot of the old timers. It's just a number, but it's a number that they really subscribe to. Because if it's just a number, try getting a big job at 68 years of age. Not happening. Everybody has a shelf life. A shelf life in your career. And I'll give you a perfect example, Sal. Try getting a 7-year contract at 35 years old coming off a 50 home run season. You're not going to get it. You see the free agents now. If you're on the other side of 30, you're not getting those contracts. Age means a lot in baseball. And I think they feel that the game has changed. And they want younger people who are involved with this metrics and this war and exit velo and all that stuff. And the younger people are very versed in it. That's why they want that. Because they want a manager, when the young guys call down to the dugout, you have to understand what they're saying. Go tell Jim Leland about it. The velo and the war and the exit velocity with the spin rate of the crate. Say, what the fuck are you talking about? You have to know now what they're talking about. Spin rate per second for these starters. The spin rate is not as good as it was last year, so evidently there's something wrong with them. You can't see that. That's all computer. And the younger guys understand that. That's their language. The old timers, that's not their language. Their language is, he didn't hustle down the first, pull him. That's their language. I'm not saying the game wasn't better. But let me tell you something. If the Mets win the World Series with Soto, and Soto says, I can't get along with this manager, I want him gone. The manager's going, not Soto. Look at LeBron James. The Dodgers have very capable people around them. They do. Very capable people. You have to remember something, Sal. Cohen originally, when he tried to buy a baseball team, it was the Dodgers he tried to buy. Cohen tried to buy the Dodgers and wasn't successful. That's the team he wanted to buy. I even question if Cohen's really such a Met fan. I know his wife's father is, and I know his wife is. I think Cohen's a big fan of money. I think he would be a Bad News Bear fan tonight if he can get 8% return on it. I'm being serious. And that's why it's hard for me to believe that David Stearns isn't selling him a bill of goods. Hey, Emmanuel, he's got to be selling him a bill of goods. Because you got to remember, Cohen, for whatever you think about him, got to be a smart guy. The guy made $20 billion. He didn't, he's a smart guy. He wasn't left any money. Oh, hey, Diego, how are you? The Guggenheim, ton of money. Well, they have the advertising for Hollywood stars. They could buy or sell Stearns 10 times over. They go, what do they have, $300 billion? I think Guggenheim has $300 billion that own the Dodgers. I don't hate the Dodgers, not at all. I don't. I think they're very well run. Look, obviously they're very well run. I think the Dodgers did, Diego, though, ruin one thing. You're not going to be able to have these contracts where they're backloaded. Diego, no, I'm starting to agree with you. That's okay, Diego. Welcome in. I hope you're doing good, man. Oh, look, you have a great team. If you're rooting for the Dodgers, you have a great model to root after. They're a class act. They really are. They really are a class act. And I have to tell you, everyone was mad at Edwin Diaz. I don't know if Edwin Diaz only left the Mets when the Dodgers presented him with a contract, because the Dodgers are the Dodgers. The Dodgers are what the Yankees used to be, where you thought about the Yankee pinstripes, thought of Babe Ruth. Where do I sign? No more. No one gives a shit anymore about the pinstripes. They care about money. The Dodgers are the Yankees of 1970. The Dodgers, look, the weather is beautiful out in LA. You get gorgeous weather out in LA. You got Hollywood. You got Santa Monica. I've been out in LA. Santa Monica, I stayed in. LA's gorgeous. LA is very much like New York also. It's liberal. So if you're from New York, you can move to LA because it's liberal as New York is. Not much difference. But I will tell you, not a bad team to model yourself after, the Dodgers. And they did it the right way. They developed some players. They went out and spent their money wisely. And now everyone hates them like they hated the big bad Yankees. People hated the Yankees because of Steinbrenner. Because Steinbrenner would just outbid you and get whoever he wanted, and he was the big bad monster. That's why they didn't want Cohen. They actually installed a Cohen tax. That tax is because of Cohen. Bill Veeck, that organization didn't want Cohen. They hate him, the White Sox. They tried to stop him from buying the team. You know how they allowed Cohen to buy the team? He had to hire Sandy Alderson because Alderson was very good friends with the White Sox guy. And the White Sox guy said, the owner said, if you give Sandy the job, I will vote okay. He was stopping the sale. That's what happened. Alderson was part of that move. Cohen had to sign Alderson to a contract for the White Sox to sign off on Cohen getting the team. Black Jack McDowell, he was good. Jack McDowell. Oh, yeah. Bayonet. Felix Millan hit 291 in 1974, was it, or 73? Back then, your second baseman had 2 homers, 38 RBIs, and made $17,000 a year. I remember in 1976, of course, the Mets weren't spending any money back then. The 2 big free agents were Larry Heisel and Lyman Bostock. And they each signed a $1 million contract, I believe. And Lyman Bostock had a terrible year and wanted to give his money to charity. Went to the owner and said, I feel funny taking the money from you. That's a true story. Go read it. and then got killed. Lyman Bostock was a young man. Remember Larry Heisel, power hitter. Bostock was terrific. A sad note, I think yesterday, the day before, Garrett Anderson passed away. I remember him. He was in his early 50s. Good player. Yeah, because baseball was baseball back then. First of all, you had to work your ass off to get a starting position. Do you know when Ozzie Smith was working for the San Diego Padres as a player? Do you know he put an odd ad in? He wanted a job as a gardener, as a side job. Richie Hebner used to dig graves in the offseason. Back in the day, if you weren't a star, you weren't making all that much money. I remember Wade Boggs on the horse with all the cops on top of the dugout. I remember that. Boggs was a great player, and they changed the rule for going in the Hall of Fame because I think Tampa offered him $1 million to go in, and he was going to do it. And Cooperstown stepped in. Cooperstown has to approve the hat you wear to go in. Bayonet, I say that all the time. You're new to my channel. I have one foot in the old world. I'm still in 1974. That's why I have such a hard time accepting baseball the way it is. I don't mind the pitch clock because they do it in 5 seconds. It's fine. Instant replays, okay. Even the pitch clock, no one ever violates anymore because you know to get in now. But just when there was hit and run, bunting, I love that. Yeah, Lee. Christian Walker. Walker's not doing what? Doesn't Walker have a few home runs? I thought the Mets were going to sign Christian Walker. He wanted too much money. Yeah, I think that, look, I think the Mets have a shot to right the ship a bit. The Mets aren't good enough to win the World Series. But the only reason I could be a little bit hopeful is because I would keel over if this was September and Lindor was still hitting 200 and Bichette was hitting 220. I just wouldn't believe it. I would think I'm dreaming. There is no way Bichette is this bad. He's too good a player. Simeon, Simeon had a few hits during the road trip, but the hits are soft. Well, he scorched one to left center. But I think Simeon is washed up. First of all, I don't think you'll get 15 homers from Simeon this year. This was a guy that hit 40. He has really declined. Defensively, to his credit, he's still terrific defensively, but his bat speed, he's slider bat speed now, not fastball. He can't catch up. He has slider bat speed, and that happens to power hitters. Polanco, I think Polanco is more hurt than anything. I think Polanco, if he was healthy, would eventually hit. I think he's hurt. And when you have bad feet and bad legs, you can't hit. It's like having a bad back. Your balance, you're pushing off. Just think about it, how much you're pushing off on your feet when you're batting. I would, if I'm Stearns, look into trading Lindor. The chances are you would find still a few teams very interested in him, but you're going to sell low on him now. You'll still get something for Lindor because there's probably no one either in any organization that believes Lindor is finished. He's off to a rough start, but no one believes he's finished. You could probably get a lot for Lindor, especially if you pay $10 million of that salary. Because role players make $12 million a year. He's making 30 something. If you offer to pay 10, 12 million of that salary for the next 6 years and get yourself a couple of real good young players. At this point, I don't think the Met fans would be that upset. The Met fans really warmed up to Lindor after Lindor had a near MVP season. They gave him a hard time his first year. When Baez came in, he gave the thumbs down to the crowd. And very immature, Lindor. And that's probably one of the reasons they got rid of Baez. They didn't want to kneel Lindor. But look, I don't think you're going to win with Lindor. Cleveland let him walk away. He's 26 years old. Cleveland let him walk. Their franchise player. Lindor's not a leader. And that's why he's not captain. Oh, the poll, yeah, those no doubters are amazing. Yeah, they really were. And he's another guy. He'll end up with 30 this year, 35. Wait till it gets warm in Baltimore, when it's 90 degrees in Baltimore. You think Philly's a launching pad? The ball flies out of Baltimore in the summer. He'll go a month, he'll hit 10 homers. Hey, Joe. Yeah, Joe. Seaver, Kuzman, Matlack. Absolutely. Jim McAndrew. Remember him as a swing starter, number 5 starter? Remember Jim McAndrew? He was your worst starter. He'd be the number 2 starter in the Mets. Matlack was terrific. I remember his rookie year. He went 15-10. Matlack was terrific. You know what I saw? I saw John Candelaria's first game. It was against the Mets. In 1975 or 6. Candelaria, he smoked the Mets. He was like 21 years old, 22 years old. Mitch, you're right. But look, and that's why they're striking. Because players say to these owners, what are you, crazy? The money you make? That's why Pittsburgh went out and spent money this year, because they think there's going to be a fine for teams that don't hit a certain threshold. They don't want owners just pocketing the money. You're going to have a few owners that will sell next year. You're going to have a couple of owners that are going to sell. You're not going to force them to spend money. They're going to sell. You have owners that make $100 million and put $10 million back in the team. That's why the Pirates went out and spent, because they were afraid they're going to get fined. But yeah, baseball is a kid's game. But with TV contracts, look, even college basketball players make a fortune now, right? And I think that's fair. They're making the school millions. Why shouldn't they get paid? And if you pay them, you have less of a chance of them throwing games if you pay them. But look, we are doing a disservice to the Mets if we give up on them as Met fans. We have a lot of invested tears, anguish, laughs, memories, maybe remembering you and your dad sitting on the couch, your dad taking you out to play catch. No, I got to get inside. The Mets are starting. A date night where you told, I'll be over 10 because the Met playoff game was on. we have a lot invested in this. And one of the key things about it is it lets us be kids again. We are able to be that wiffle ball player at 9 years of age again. I'm Rusty Staub, and I remember his stance was, right? I'm Tom Seaver. We get a chance to be kids again. Kids with adult responsibilities, though. That's the rough part. Yeah, Buddy Harrelson was a 230 hitter, 35 RBIs, 1 or 2 homers a year. But he was a terrific fielder. I remember he had a bad knee. He missed part of one season. But look, I remember that 73 Met team, John Milner, Felix Millan. Hey, Gerald. I think Luis Roberts, they're so afraid of load management with him. I think if they let him play the way he wants to play, he'll get hurt. Luis Roberts has tried to steal a couple of bases and got caught twice. And this is a guy that should be able to steal 30. He hasn't really impressed me defensively like I thought he would. I thought he was an elite center fielder. I have to tell you, I think Tyrone Taylor's a better fielder than Luis Roberts. I do. I think Roberts good. He has no arm. But I think Tyrone Taylor is just as good a center fielder. And I was sold that Robert was like this Gold Glove center fielder. Yeah, he might have been 3 years ago. He's not a Gold Glove center fielder now. But look, do I think he'll hit 15, 20 homers, knock in 60, hit 260? Yeah, I do. I do. If he stays on the field and they're doing their best. He's played 19 out of the 22 games. He's actually played a little more than they probably wanted him to play because they got to win. I think if this team was 15-7, he would have only played 15 or 16 games. I think they forced him in the lineup a little because they need to win. Yeah, well, Nolan Ryan, Jim Fregosi was washed up. Fregosi was as bad a trade as Bob Aspromonte. Fregosi, but he was coming off a decent year, Fregosi. Back then when you were 32, you were finished. You didn't work out. The 32-year-olds had pot bellies by then. They were drinking, they were smoking. They didn't take care of their bodies. They weren't in the weight room, those guys. I remember when the Mets got Rusty Staub. Staub was having a great year his first year, and after about the 60th game or so, I think he broke his hamate bone. I think he got hit with a pitch, and he missed about 2 months. And I remember him in the bullpen, and he was bunting. He was bunting, I guess, to try to see how it would feel. I remember they showed that during a telecast. I love Rusty Staub. Never a great fielder. He was serviceable, had a good arm, and he was a good hitter. And, of course, he finally hit 30 homers and 100 RBIs, and the Mets traded him. But, yeah, Nolan Ryan, absolutely. Nolan Ryan was a freak. I remember when he was 47 years old, he was coaching his son's college team, and he was throwing 96. He had it on the gun. Unbelievable. Yeah, would have been a different franchise. Look, the Mets had Amos Otis. They would have had a center fielder for 15 years if they didn't trade Amos Otis. Yeah, Joe. Lindor, I think, is a soft player. I do. I don't doubt that he cares. I don't doubt he wants to win or anything like that. I just think he's a bit of a soft player. Joe Pig Natano. Yes. Yes, in the bullpen. Absolutely. Bayonet. Joe Pignatano. Vern Horscheit, remember him? Rube Walker was the pitching coach. Oh, Rube Walker. Remember Bob Murphy? Joe Pignatano. Yeah. Those Mets were funny back then. I remember Bob Murphy when he'd announce Doug Sisk, he'd say, "Here's the 2-2 pitch, ball three. All right, so they'll all be going. Here's the 3-2 pitch and a high pop in the infield, should be playable. Hubie Brooks, oh, he makes a play. Oh, what a play by Hubie!" Oh my God, you're bringing back memories, man. Here to paint the word picture for you is Bob Murphy. Thank you, Lindsey Nelson. Hello again, everybody. Lindsey Nelson was great. Remember his sport jackets? He used to announce the Notre Dame games in football during the offseason. Oh, so many of those guys. The Hammer, John Milner. Remember him? 17 homers and 38 RBIs, I think he had. How do you hit 17 homers and only hit 30? That'll tell you about that lineup. He never had anybody in front of him. Remember Doug Flynn? He won the Gold Glove for the Mets at shortstop, Doug Flynn, or second base. They moved him to second, Doug Flynn. Yeah, Flynn was great. Great fielder. I remember that trade. Tom Seaver. They got Dan Norman, Steve Henderson, Doug Flynn, and Pat Zachary. Zachary came off the Rookie of the Year. He went 15-10. He won the Rookie of the Year. It looked like an okay trade. Dan Norman was supposed to have power. Steve Henderson was hitting 300. No power. Remember Mike Vail? When Mike Vail came up, he had like a 23-game hitting streak. He's hitting like 330 when he first came up. Good hitter, couldn't field, couldn't run. Good hitter, Mike Vail. Remember 1973, Benny Ayala? I was at the game when he hit his first home run. First time up in the major leagues. First at bat, he hit a home run. I was at the Met game when Todd Pratt against Arizona hit the home run over the center field fence. It might have been Finley. And when he came down, everyone thought he caught it. I was at that game. I think it was 99 or 2000. Yeah. I was there when the Mets clinched. Keith Hernandez didn't start that day. He had a migraine, probably hungover. Dave Magadan. And you know how I know? Because Keith was at Shout the night before, and I was there working till 4 a.m. And guess who was there till 4 a.m. with me? Keith. And the next night he didn't play. Probably had a hangover. I remember 1976 or 77 when the Mets traded for Lenny Randall. Randall started the next day at third base and went like 3 for 4. I was at that game too. Lenny Randall had a great game. Either 3 for 4, 3 for 5, something like that. Kevin Mitchell was great, but they didn't want Mitchell near Darryl Strawberry. They found Mitchell, I noticed, they found Mitchell with a gun in the locker room. He was showing Darryl Strawberry his new gun. It wasn't legal. Yeah, they were just afraid that Kevin Mitchell would get around Doc and Darryl and ruin them. He ended up winning the MVP. Rusty Staub for Mickey Lolich. Lolich had a good year with the Mets. He went 8-20, but his ERA was pretty good that year. They didn't score for him, but Lolich didn't have a bad year with the Mets. His ERA was under 4 that year. He was about 37, 38 years old at that time. Mickey Lolich. I remember when the Mets signed their first free agent, Tom Grieve. Remember him? Off the Texas Rangers, third baseman? He did nothing. Tom Grieve. That was the Met. Everyone's signing linemen. Bostocks and this and that. Mets signed Tom Grieve. And we were all excited about it because we didn't think they'd spend anything. Could they have, Joe? I think I heard that. I met Reggie. Reggie is a prick. I actually got into Kindness Corner. My friend was the head of the Little People of America Association. He was a little person, Scott Seidman. And we were at Shea Stadium at the time, and they're ushering people in, and we're in the wrong spot, and they ushered us into this room. Koosman had come back No, Seaver had come back. Koosman faced him. First time back against the Mets, Seaver. The Mets lost. And in Keiner's corner was Jerry Koosman, Tom Seaver, Bud Harrelson. And they all had slippers on because they don't wear their cleats in there. They have slippers on. And during the commercial, we all sat pretzel-legged. About 30 kids are all sitting pretzel-legged, and we're staring at them. And Nancy Seaver, they open the door. Hi, Ralph. Hey, Nancy, how are you? Tom, you going home? I'm going home with Buddy. So evidently, she didn't drive him home. He went home with Bud Harrelson. They both lived in Connecticut. They still had homes in Connecticut. Yeah. Ralph Kiner. Ralph Kiner, off a real big season, when his team Pirates finished last, went to get a raise. And the guy said, we finished last with you. We could finish last without you. He said to him, Kiner was really... Oh, I go back. I mean, I've been going to games since 1970, 71. Jim Goska, George Theodore. I remember in 1975, real excited. The Mets got Del Unser from Philly, remember? Mets finally had a good center fielder. I remember when the Mets got Gene Kleins from Pittsburgh, stolen base machine, couldn't do anything with the Mets, early 70s. I remember when the Mets got Vince Coleman. I remember when the Mets signed George Foster. George Foster his wife was a diamond with Amway. He was more concerned with selling Amway products. Yeah, Bayonet, the Stork, George Theodore, Jim Goska. I'm trying to think of players in the 70s. Del Unser, John Stearns. He was terrific. Stole 25 bases as a catcher. Willie Montanez. Remember Willie Montanez, the hot dog? Willie Montanez. Remember Mike Phillips, the converted catcher that would lay on his stomach on a throw to first base? Mike Phillips, Frank Tavares. Right now, if I took a bat, I could probably hit 10 points less than Frank Tavares. So many players of the past. Cleon Jones. I remember the first game I ever went to, Cleon Jones hit a home run the right center field. That's where his power was. He didn't usually pull the ball. He hit the ball to right center. I went to the Mays Trophy game. It must have been 1971. My next door neighbor took me and her little son and husband. We went, evidently, the Mays Trophy game. They had the big tennis matches at Forest Hill Stadium. And it must have gone late because we got to Shea Stadium. It was like the fifth inning. And it was raining. I don't know if anybody could check that out, what Mays Trophy game that was when it rained. But they were great tennis enthusiasts. So we were watching the tennis matches first. I think we watched Chrissy Everett. She liked her. She was a teacher, Claire. I remember that. I remember Mark Bombach, 1979. I was a guy at 18 where I'd wait to go out till 10:30 because I had to watch the Met game. The Mets were losing 1,700 games a year that year, those years. And I was watching. You had Mazzilli. Mark Bombach was their number one starter. How scary is that? And Bombach, I think, started 8-0 that season. He ended up like 9-12 or 12-12. He started off 8-0, Mark Bombach. I think he threw the ball so slow that no one could hit it until they realized what he was doing. Willie Mays. I remember listening to a game in 1970 where Tommy Agee stole home plate for the Mets. Maybe someone could look. Rain Man Mitch, can you look back and see when Willie Mays stole home plate in a 1970s game? It was probably August because I had just moved into my new apartment with my parents. And I had the game on radio. and Willie Mays, Tommy Agee stole home. Had to be August, probably. I remember when Willie Mays fell in center field. I remember his first home run. I wasn't there. I remember his first home run to left center. Willie Mays. If you look at my channel, Bayonet, there's an interview with Jeff Green. That was the guy that was my boss and dear friend when I was a bouncer at Shout, China Club, and all that. Willie Mays' daughter lived with Jeff and his parents for a while. Willie Mays wasn't the nicest guy in the world. And Willie Mays used to torture Hank Aaron. He wasn't a very nice guy, Willie Mays. But his daughter lived with Eddie Green and his mom, Penny. But yes, so many, the 80s I know, because the 80s I was very friendly with Bob Ojeda. In fact, I set Bob Ojeda up. My girlfriend at the time set him up on a date. We went double dating. We went to this place called America off Broadway. It was a restaurant that had on the menu food from every state. Yeah, Bobby O was a good guy. Here's me and Bobby O in the parking lot of Shea Stadium. And he was walking with Gary Apple. I said, Bobby, it's Vinny from Shout. If you don't come over here and take a picture, I'm going to tell Gary what you used to do with Shout. He looks at Gary and says, I better get over there. Bobby was a nice guy. Bobby told me they fired him from the Cyclones as a pitching coach because he was letting the pitchers go like 88 pitches, 90 pitches, and they didn't want them throwing like more than 75. No, Mitch, this had to be 71, the game I was at. 71 or 72. Duffy Dyer, Ron Hodges, Ellis Valentine, Montreal, great arm, good outfield, always hurt. Moisey Salou. Remember when the Mets got Moisey Salou? He hit like 340. Lance Johnson had like 20 something. Okay, that's when it was then, Lee. Summer, was it August? Because I only moved into that new apartment in July. I'm thinking August. So many players the Mets have had. Remember when they had Randy Myers, Bruce Bereni? Remember when they had Bruce Bereni from the Reds? I think Bruce Bereni originally was on the 86 Met roster. Remember when the Mets got Rusty Staub back? He became a pinch hitter. He had about 21 or 23 pinch hits, set a record. Great pinch hitter. And the difference between rooting for those teams and rooting for these teams. Thank you, Lee. July. The difference when you're a kid, baseball means everything to you. When you watch the Met game on a Sunday afternoon now, you're not calling your friends at 4 o'clock. Come on, you want to go play wiffle ball? You're not doing that. You're tending to your garden because your wife's been screaming at you for 4 hours. Back then, no, I was never at the Polo Wall. How old do you think I am, Joe? I'm only 64. I'm joking with you. No, I never went. Back then, you were a ball player. Even if you were a wiffle ball player. Yeah, I knew Bobby O very well. Yes, he wanted to be the pitching coach. The Mets turned him down. Then he was going to be the pitching coach for Italy, and I think John Franco went over there. Because I knew Benny DiStefano. He played on my team in Lafayette, and Benny DiStefano became an instructor for the Cyclones, and then went to Hawaii, the Pacific Coast League. But so many of these players. But when you were a kid, you were a player. And you went Asper, I could be good. Everyone was a player. Wiffle ball, stickball, baseball. L, which one did you hear me yelling? That I'm not 200 years old? But Bobby O was very nice. Junior was, and so, you know who was traded to the Mets and turned it down the last minute? Barry Larkin. Before the Mets got Mike Bordick in 2000, the Mets had the trade made. And when they contacted Larkin, he said no. They traded Barry Larkin to the Mets. Yes, Griffey Jr. A-Rod wanted to come to the Mets. Yeah, A-Rod wanted to come to the Mets. He wanted the Mets, but he wanted a box. And Wilpon said there's not going to be 24 players and A-Rod. Imagine the difference in the Met organization if the Mets had A-Rod. They probably would have won a World Series. They would have won it probably in 2000. Was he with the – no, wait, was he around the 2000 A-Rod? Yeah, he was around, right? 340. Jones was great. Cleon Jones is a good player. Art Shamsky. I don't remember a lot. You know, the 1970, I became a fan, but I don't know a lot of the players. I know the names, George Theodore, Don Hahn. Remember him? We've always had players that just couldn't hit. You know, it's like an organizational thing. When they want to talk about the organization, go dig some people up and talk about 1970, because we always had guys that hit 210. Every guy I'm rattling off hit 220. Don Hahn, remember him in center field? Another guy that if I was in the stands, Gil Hodges probably would have said, Vinny, get it back. Don, sit down. The guy couldn't hit. A-Rod would have been a Met. Absolutely. But there were so many players that the Mets have had that stink. You know, other organizations have players. We have more players than not that stink. And you know what happens? We get players that were good, and then they stink too. So it's not bad enough that we have players we bring up that stink, but we get players that we think are going to be good, and then they stink. How can we win? The Mets were always great. The Mets used to do one thing. They used to hide their players all the time in the minor leagues. Lastings Millage. All these guys. They'd hide them in the minors and talk them up so they could include them in trade packages. Because they knew if you saw them play, you know they stink. So you hide them in the minors. Yeah, they got rid of George Foster real fast. Yeah, I remember in 1983 or 84, when the Mets started rebuilding, and Mike Torres and Ray Burris were in the starting rotation. And they brought up Walt Terrell and Ron Darling. Mike Torres was going through a divorce at that time. But, yeah, and, you know, when the Mets got Keith Hernandez, he said he cried. He didn't want to come to the Mets. And that was the best offer Whitey Herzog and them got. You know, when there's an announcement that 3 guys were involved in cocaine, we're not going to tell you who they are, but 2 get traded and 1 gets released. Pretty good idea. We know who they are. And Keith was one of them. I drove Keith home once from Shout. Joe. No, it wouldn't have been 79. It had to be 70 or 71 or 72 because that's when I lived there. Um, couldn't get a cab. I don't know if the cabs were on strike. It was 1986. And I drove. Keith lived in an apartment building on 49th Street and 2nd Avenue. That's where he lived. And I drove him home. They had a really good year. There were 3 million people. They were outperforming the Yankees. The Mets, first of all, should have won more than one World Series. Now, 86, though, honestly, I thought they were better in 87 than 86. Mets got lucky in 86. They're supposed to lose to Houston. And then Shea Stadium's scoreboard on the ground ball said, "Congratulations, Boston Red Sox." They had to take it down. Boy, imagine being Bill Buckner. What a great career. I remember when he played for the Cubs. Imagine Bill Buckner and you're remembered for that your whole career. Can you imagine that? He got death threats, his family. Try to break the jinx of winning a World Series and the ball goes through your legs and you don't win. I remember going on a date. The Mets were supposed to play the Houston Astros. It was around October 12th or something. It was a Monday night and they got rained out at home. And I went on a date that night. I was supposed to go watch the game at a bar with her. We ended up not going, obviously, to watch the game. And I remember thinking, like, we're just not going to beat Mike Scott. Scott was unhittable. Scott threw a 95-mile-an-hour ghost fork like Senga. I would say Scott was exactly like Senga, just that Senga stinks and Scott was good. But he threw that 95-mile-an-hour splitter that you just couldn't hit. It disappeared. Backman manager and Bobby O pitching coach. Well, I tell you, Bobby O would not go for this crap. He'd have guys throwing 120 pitches. Oh, okay, Sal. Thank you. Yeah, I like Del Unsa, 1975. Let me guess the stats. And I haven't, you see, I haven't, I'm guessing, let's see how good I am. I'm saying Del Unsa, I think he hit 294, 12 homers and 51 RBIs. Does that sound right? I know, BJ. Bill Buckner came up as a left fielder. Bill Buckner could steal 30 bases. He had a very bad compound fracture of his ankle. Could never run after that. Dave Schneck. Remember his neck? Dave Schneck. Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, hey, William, how are you? Hope you're having a good day. Yeah. He's in the same spot. They had a bunch of, and it's amazing that you scuff the ball in one way and it moves like that. You would think it's more your wrist, right? It's crazy. He's another guy, a Met that's stuck. If you go from the Mets, you become Mike Scott, Justin Turner, Amos Otis, Nolan Ryan. When you come to the Mets, you become Bobby Bonilla. Well, Piazza was good. Bobby Bonilla, Jason Bay, Mike Bordick. He came supposed to be a great fielding shortstop. He made an error his first game with the Mets. Just Bruce Beauclair. Remember him? Incredible. Just incredible. I think of all the players I wasted my time being as a wiffle ball player. I'm Tim Foley. But like I was saying a few minutes back, and I got derailed, we were all baseball players at 12. It meant something to us. So, of course, it's going to mean something different when we're watching the game. but we expect them to at least care as much as we did when all we got was a lemonade for playing out in the sun 4 hours, and you probably make $1 million that day. All we're asking, stop laughing when someone just beat your team. Lindor, it's not funny that you got knocked out of the fucking playoffs. Hosmer was good. He's a good player, Hosmer. Then he went to San Diego and wasn't any good, but he was good. The Mets tried to get him, actually. Kevin Mitchell. Look at these guys that the Mets let go of. Now, the Mets did. Now, I have a theory, which I actually told Bobby O. And Bobby O thought this was a really good point. Do you know why all those pitchers, think about it, all the left-hand pitchers that pitched for the Red Sox were great? Bruce Hurst, John Tudor, Bobby Ojeda, Oil Can Boyd. He was a righty, I think. All the lefties. You know why? Because you learned to pitch at Fenway. If you were a lefty, what did you have to do? Keep the ball away from a right-hand hitter. So you had that devastating changeup that you worked to the outside of the plate. You learned how to pitch. And every lefty that came from Boston became a terrific pitcher because they learned how to pitch. Austin Jackson. Oh, Scott was doctoring the ball, absolutely. The Piazza trade was probably the best trade they ever made. Brilliant trade. And if you look at Piazza's stats, he played almost the same amount of games with the Mets as he did with the Dodgers. He was a little better with the Dodgers. Piazza had a better batting average of the Dodgers. He was hitting 340 with the Dodgers. It wasn't hitting 340 with the Mets, hitting 320. His power to right center field was unbelievable. Remember the Mets got Mo Vaughn? Yeah, I think he hit 294 in 75 for the Mets. He had 12 homers, I think. He's a good player. Good center fielder. Not a star, but they didn't have anybody. He was a good player for them. You know, they came off that 73 season, disappointing in 74 with Danny Frisella, Nino Espinosa, and all those people. And then and they just, drafted Lee Mazzilli. He became their all-star, the face of the franchise. Nino Espinosa, remember him? Jeff Kent. Oh, there's a Hall of Famer the Mets traded. Well, he wasn't there. They got him from Toronto when they traded David Cohn. But they got him and Ryan Thompson. And Ryan Thompson was supposed to be the guy in that trade, not Jeff Kent. Ryan Thompson was the future star. Ended up being Jeff Kent. The Mets didn't want to trade for him. Doubleday insisted on it. Fred Wilpon never wanted to spend any money. And then the Wilpons bought out Doubleday. But Doubleday wanted Piazza. Look, Mike Piazza, you can't say enough about him. What a hitter. And look at that Met team. You had Robin Ventura. Ventura ruined his ankle too. I remember a couple of years before with the White Sox. Robin Ventura had a terrible injury to his ankle. Ventura was the third baseman, Gold Glove third baseman. The Mets just great team. The Mets have had real good players. And if you look at this Met roster, The Mets have some good players. Bo Bichette's a good hitter. You're not going to believe this after seeing, the first 22 games of this season. Bo Bichette is a lifetime 292 hitter. Bo Bichette has played 8 years in the major leagues. This is his 8th year. His 162 game average, 41 doubles a year. This is his average of his whole career, 162 games. This is what he averages. You can't tell me this guy's not a good hitter. 94 runs scored. He averages 194 hits a year, 41 doubles, 24 homers, 94 RBIs, 13 stolen bases. He averages to strike out about 139 times a year. Everyone strikes out now. His lifetime OPS is a shade under 800. His OPS plus for his career is 119. He's 19% better than any other player that you would put at that position, a replacement player. And he's 4 times been up for an MVP award out of 8 years. Yeah, I've been to Fenway. Bo Bichette is a good hitter. Now, this is your second baseman. His 162 game average, 25 homers, 79 RBIs, 32 doubles a year, a 754 OPS, right under 800, which is good. Anything over 750 is very good. Marcus Semien. Marcus Semien hit 45 home runs 5 years ago. Then 26, 26, 23, missed a third of a season and hit 15. So he would have had probably 24 last year. So last year, if he doesn't miss a third of the season, if you just prorate the stats, and I'm not giving him great stats, he's at 25 and 90 with 25 doubles. That's only 6 months ago. That's just second baseman. And these guys aren't 40 years old. Your first baseman DH, Jorge Polanco, averages 23 homers, 84 RBIs, a 262 batting average, averages 33 doubles a year. Last year, he had 26 homers and 78 RBIs and hit 265 in 138 games. That's Polanco. We're not talking about guys that had great years 4 years ago. We're talking about guys that had good years last year. And they're doing absolutely nothing. So you mean to tell me you didn't even want them to do any better? But if you told me that I got you a player for second base, and let's say he regresses a bit, he's a year older, that's going to have 20 homers, 70 RBIs, 25 doubles, hit 255, and give you gold glove defense at second base to go with a almost gold glover at short with Lindor, because a lot of double plays went by the wayside that now you will have this year. I'm getting you Bo Bichette. He's probably with Soto with a 425 on base percentage in front of him. He's probably going to go 24 homers, 100 RBIs, and hit 290. And then Simeon or Polanco. Let's say 15 and 65, 255, which is really going down. If you had those three players playing to that capacity now, the Mets would be 15 and 7, not 7 and 15. Because the Mets starting pitching has been fine, the top three. No one's hitting. And Francisco Lindor, let's put him in that conversation. He's not a new player. But let's just say instead of 30 and 90, Lindor's going to give you 25 and 75. He has a home run and an RBI. Carson Bench hit 400, led all minor leaguers in exhibition, spring training. After 22 games, he's going to hit 150 with a homer and an RBI or 2 RBIs. And these are, other than Benj, the other players have played at least 10 years in major leagues. And they are not, other than Simeon, they're all between 28 and 33. So there's no reason to think that they're going to fall completely off a cliff. They maybe regress a little. You mean to tell me if these players were playing up to these numbers that the Mets wouldn't at least be 13 and 9? Let's not say 15 and 7. 13 and 9? Because remember, they started off 7 and 4. So what would have happened if they started off 7 and 4 and these guys pick it up after the first 2 weeks of the season? There is no way to think this was going to happen. And like there's no way to think this is going to happen, there's no way to believe that Bichette's going to hit 220, that Simeon's going to hit 205, that Lindor's going to hit 200. No way. That's why if you're a Met fan, there is some hope. Joe, his bat speed, he has never had great bat speed, Simeon. But it's gone down 1 or 2 miles an hour per year. So if you look at this lineup, there's no, listen, I don't think they should be where the Dodgers are, but I don't think they should have a 624 OPS. I would think somewhere around 725, 730, which isn't even that good. Soto is a perennial 920 to 970 OPS guy. He was at 920 when he got hurt. Lindor's a 770 to 790. Simeon 770. Polanco 770. These guys are in the 400s. Bichette 790. 805. Bichette's at 400. I'm surprised they've won any games. If you look at exactly these stats, they should be 1 and 14. Oh, I'm sorry. They should be 2 and 21. So if I'm telling you that, and the top 3 starters remain okay, there is every reason to believe that the Mets, if they start hitting, their next 22 may not be 15 and 7, but could very well be 13 and 9. 13-9, 13-9, 13-9 will put you at 70 games instead of 60, where I tell you that you can really read a team by then, right? And at that point, you are 46 and whatever it is. You're back over 500 with 90 games to play. So what would I sign on for at the 60 game mark now? We have 38 games left. If we can go 22-16, we'll be 2 games under 500 with 102 left. With 102 left, if we can go 56-46, we're at 85 wins, which probably you'll be short for the playoffs. So do the prospects look good of making the playoffs? No. But is it impossible? No. Because if we've seen anything from this team, we have seen over the last 2 years, absolutely, Joe, good point. What we've seen, this team is unbelievably streaky. This team is very capable of going 9-2 the next 11. And that's not wishful thinking. You look at their streaks, they're just streaky. And I guarantee you, if after 33 games in 2 weeks, they are 16-17, a game out of 500, no one is calling to fire Mendoza. You might have your spattering of not liking him. Stearns, all right, maybe. No one will be jumping off the bridge if the Mets before 40 games are 500 this year. Yeah, they've dug themselves a hole. Absolutely. Probably won't finish first now because you spotted a good team 8 games. It'd be tough. But no one in that division's any good. They're all playing 500 ball. So I do believe that this isn't it. I'm not saying we're going to make the playoffs, but I think we're going to be able to dream about making it. Right now, you can't even dream about making the playoffs. I really do believe at the trade deadline, I don't think this team will be 15 games under 500. I would totally expect them at the trade deadline to be probably around 500 and hope that they take off the second half and maybe give you a 50-30 over the last, get lucky, 47-33 and finish with 90 wins. It can happen. Now, what has to happen for that to happen? Well, Soto's got to be Soto. And there was every reason to believe that Soto was more comfortable this year, and he was going to be Soto because he was off to a good start. He was off to a good start, and no one was hitting in front of him. He was coming up, no one was on base. So it's very possible that you could really see this team make a move. Hey, Vinny, he is not fired yet. And Vin, if they don't fire him today, he's not getting fired for a while. Because it would make no sense to not fire him today and then they get swept by Minnesota. Okay, we'll fire him Thursday. What was the difference? This was the day. On the off day, you'd fire him. So if he didn't get fired today at 6:20, I don't think he's getting fired. Look, I don't think it's all his fault. I don't think he's a very good manager, but I don't think it's all his fault. But thanks for coming in, Vin. I'm going to do these Mets specials every day. I never did my channel. I have an interview with Rob Finaro, a friend of mine from The Sopranos. I do music, album reviews, stuff like that. But I think I am going to need the group therapy. And I thank you all for coming in here. Maybe we could all help each other. But we'll see. I will see you tomorrow, post game, after the Met game. Have a great night, everybody.